Hey you, welcome back to Secrets with Maeve, the space for the conversations we usually keep to ourselves. I'm Maeve. Today we're talking about something I know so many of us struggle with in silence. Why your silence drives her absolutely crazy. She can't stop thinking about you. Let's get into it. The moment you stop talking is the moment she starts thinking, and most men never realize that silence is louder than any text they could send. Listen to me carefully. I'm not here to teach you games. I'm here to show you a truth most men were never taught. When you constantly explain yourself, constantly reassure, constantly chase, you remove the one thing that creates emotional gravity, uncertainty. Women don't fall for noise, they fall for emotional tension. When you reply instantly every time, when you over-clarify every misunderstanding, when you panic the second she pulls back, you communicate something without words. You tell her, my emotional stability depends on you, and that kills attraction. But when you go silent, not in anger, not in manipulation, but in grounded control, something shifts inside her. The same brain that was comfortable starts asking questions. Why hasn't he texted? Is he busy? Is he upset? Did I do something wrong? Is he losing interest? You see, the female mind is deeply tuned to emotional signals. Silence is a signal. It creates space, and space forces imagination to wake up. Imagination is powerful. It can turn a small spark into obsession. When you're always available, she doesn't have to think about you. You're just there, predictable, safe, easy. But when you remove your constant presence, her brain has to fill the gap. And most of the time, she fills it with thoughts about you. This isn't about disappearing to punish her. It's about not over-investing before she does. Men are taught to prove their value. Women are biologically wired to evaluate value. If you over-deliver attention too early, you lower your perceived scarcity, and scarcity drives desire. Think about this. Have you ever noticed how someone becomes more attractive the moment they seem slightly out of reach? Not cold, not rude, just not fully accessible. That's because uncertainty activates emotion, and emotion creates attachment. When you go silent after she tests you, instead of arguing, you pass the test without saying a word. When she gives you mixed energy and you respond by focusing on your life instead of chasing clarity, you communicate strength. Silence says, I have options. I have priorities. I'm not shaken. And that unsettles her in a good way. Because most men react. Very few remain centered. If she sends a short reply and you send paragraphs, she feels power. If she delays and you double text, she feels control. But if she pulls back and you calmly match the energy, now the dynamic changes. Now she wonders. Silence forces her to confront her own feelings. When you're constantly talking, she doesn't need to figure out how she feels. You're filling all the space. But when you step back, she has to sit with her own emotions. And that's where attachment grows. Let me be clear. This only works if your silence comes from confidence, not fear. If you're silent while anxiously checking your phone every 30 seconds, that energy leaks. Women feel desperation even through minimal words. True silence is emotional self-control. It's you saying internally, if she's interested, she'll lean in. If not, I'll be fine. That energy is magnetic. When you stop trying to control the outcome, you become the outcome she fears losing. And the moment she feels she might lose you, her mind starts racing. Here's what most men don't understand about her mind. Silence doesn't just create curiosity, it activates her emotional survival instincts. When your energy suddenly becomes less predictable, her brain shifts into evaluation mode. Women are deeply intuitive when it comes to social dynamics. They constantly read shifts in tone, timing, presence. So when you pull back calmly instead of reacting, she feels the shift immediately. And the first question that hits her isn't anger, it's insecurity. Did he lose interest? Is he talking to someone else? Was I too distant? Did I misjudge him? You see, when you're always available, she feels secure in your position. She assumes you're not going anywhere. But security without investment leads to comfort, and comfort without effort slowly kills attraction. Silence disrupts comfort, and disruption creates awareness. Now, suddenly, she becomes more observant. She replays your last conversation. She analyzes your tone. She remembers the way you looked at her. She scrolls back through messages. She checks your social media activity, not because she's crazy, because uncertainty demands clarity. And when clarity isn't handed to her easily, she starts chasing it internally. That's when her imagination begins building stories. Maybe you're busy improving yourself. Maybe another woman is noticing your value. Maybe she underestimated you. Here's the psychological shift. When you stop chasing validation, she starts seeking reassurance, but only if your silence is clean. There's a difference between silent strength and silent resentment. If you disappear to punish her, to play games, or to make her anxious on purpose, that energy eventually collapses. Manipulation always reveals itself through subtle behavior, passive-aggressive responses, cold tone, ego-driven reactions. What we're talking about is grounded detachment. It's the mindset of a man who has purpose outside of her, a man who doesn't crumble when communication slows, a man who understands that attraction breathes in space, not pressure. When you give her space, you give her the opportunity to lean forward, and leaning forward is crucial. Women bond emotionally through pursuit just as much as men do, but in a different way. When she initiates, when she wonders, when she reaches out first, her investment increases. The more she invests, the more she values. This is human psychology. We value what we work for. If you remove every obstacle, if you hand over constant attention freely, she doesn't feel the need to secure you. There's no urgency. Silence introduces subtle urgency. Not panic, not drama, just a quiet reminder that your time is not guaranteed. And something powerful happens when she senses that. She begins testing herself. Why do I care if he hasn't texted? Why am I thinking about him this much? Why do I feel slightly uncomfortable? Because emotional attachment often begins as discomfort. Comfort is calm. Attachment is tension. Silence creates tension. But here's the part most men miss. You cannot fake this energy. If your entire identity revolves around whether she texts you back, silence becomes torture for you. You break first. You reach out. You try to fix something that didn't need fixing. And the dynamic resets. The power of silence only works when you genuinely believe you'll be fine either way. That belief shifts your posture, your voice, your response time, your emotional reactions. It changes how you carry yourself in conversations. You become less reactive, more selective. And women feel that shift instantly because a man who doesn't panic is rare, and rare things are valuable. When you go silent from strength, not fear, her mind doesn't just get curious, it starts recalculating your worth. There's a moment, and most men never see it, when her confidence starts to wobble. It doesn't happen when you argue. It doesn't happen when you beg. It happens when you simply don't react. When you stop feeding every emotional fluctuation with immediate reassurance, something subtle shifts inside her. Women are used to men chasing clarity, men chasing approval, men chasing attention. So when you don't chase, when you calmly step back and return to your life, you interrupt the pattern she expects. And broken patterns create emotional spikes. Understand this. Attraction is not built on comfort alone. It's built on emotional movement up and down, near and far, presence and absence. When you're always present, there's no movement, no rhythm, no mystery. But when you become slightly less predictable, not unstable, just not overly available, her brain becomes alert. She begins watching you more closely. If you post less, she notices. If you respond slower, she feels it. If you seem unbothered, she questions it. And here's where it gets deeper. Women are highly sensitive to social positioning. If she senses that you're not emotionally dependent on her attention, she subconsciously raises your status, not because you said anything impressive, but because your behavior signals independence. Independence is power. The man who doesn't crumble under silence is the man who feels emotionally secure. And emotional security is rare. When you react to every delay with anxiety, you communicate fear of loss. But when you continue living fully without demanding her validation, you communicate abundance. And abundance triggers competition. Even if there's no visible rival, her mind starts filling in blanks. If he's not chasing me, who is he focused on? Why does he seem so calm? Did I misread how much he cared? Notice something important. You didn't accuse, you didn't withdraw love, you didn't start a fight. You simply stopped overextending. And that alone forces her to reassess the dynamic. Most men overplay their hand. They reveal all their interests too quickly. They invest emotionally before she's earned that depth. And once she feels secure in your devotion without earning it, the tension fades. Silence restores balance. It says, my attention is valuable. And when attention becomes valuable, she treats it differently. Now, this doesn't mean ignoring her when she communicates respectfully. It means matching energy. It means not escalating effort when she reduces hers. It means not performing for approval. Women test stability unconsciously. They may cancel plans to see your reaction. They may delay responses to gauge your patience. They may act slightly distant to feel your emotional temperature. If you react dramatically, you fail the test. If you stay grounded and continue moving forward with your life, you pass without words. And here's the emotional twist. When she feels you pulling back slightly, not emotionally cold, just centered, she may increase effort, she may initiate more, she may become warmer. She may suddenly remember things about you she never mentioned before because now she feels the possibility of losing something real. Loss creates clarity. When she senses that your attention is not locked in permanently, her emotional system activates. And once she starts investing more to secure you, her attachment deepens. The more she invests, the more she values. This is why silence, when used from strength, isn't manipulation. It's alignment. It allows her feelings to surface naturally without you forcing them. And when her feelings surface on their own, they're far stronger because she chose them, not because you convinced her. The most powerful position you can hold is this. I like you, but I don't need you. That energy doesn't push her away. It makes her step closer. And the quieter you become, the louder her thoughts get. There comes a point where her curiosity turns into emotional pressure. Not because you demanded anything, not because you forced distance, but because your silence made her confront something she wasn't prepared to face. Her own attachment. When you're constantly talking, constantly reassuring, constantly initiating, she stays relaxed. She doesn't have to question her feelings because you're doing all the emotional labor. You're carrying the weight of momentum. But the moment you step back and let the interaction breathe, she feels the weight shift, and weight creates awareness. Now she's the one checking her phone. She's the one wondering about your schedule. She's the one noticing the time gaps. Do you understand how powerful that is? Attraction intensifies when effort becomes mutual and silence forces mutuality. It removes the imbalance where you're overextending and she's passively receiving. Here's something deeper most men ignore. Women are highly attuned to emotional stability. They may be drawn to excitement, humor, confidence, but what keeps their attention long-term is grounded control. When you don't react impulsively, when you don't demand reassurance, when you don't interrogate distance, you communicate emotional leadership, and leadership feels safe. But here's the paradox. Safety combined with unpredictability creates desire. You're stable, but not clingy, interested, but not desperate, present, but not dependent. That balance is rare. When she senses that you have a life moving forward, regardless of her pace, Her internal narrative shifts. She begins asking herself if she's keeping up with you, if she's matching your energy, if she might lose access to a man who isn't easily shaken. And that question lingers because losing something stable feels heavier than losing something chaotic. Most men think intensity builds attraction, constant texting, long emotional confessions, immediate availability, but intensity without restraint feels overwhelming. Silence is restraint. It shows you're in control of your impulses, that you don't need constant validation, that you're not trying to secure her through pressure. Pressure repels, composure attracts. When you go silent from composure, not ego, she feels it as strength. And strength triggers admiration. Admiration slowly transforms into desire. But let me tell you something critical. If you go silent and then secretly stalk her social media, overanalyze her stories, or talk about her constantly to your friends, your energy becomes fragmented. You're physically silent but emotionally loud. Women sense emotional inconsistency. True silence is internal calm. It's waking up and focusing on your work. It's going to the gym without checking your phone every set. It's enjoying your evening without obsessing over notifications. That grounded state radiates subtly in your future interactions. When you do respond, your tone feels steady. Your words feel measured. You're not overcompensating. And that steadiness unsettles her in the most powerful way because now she can't control the rhythm. She can't predict when you'll reach out next. She can't rely on your constant validation to regulate her emotions. She has to regulate herself. And when she regulates herself while thinking about you, attachment deepens. Silence doesn't scream, it whispers. It says, I'm here, but I'm not chasing. And when a woman realizes you're not chasing, something instinctive awakens. She leans in, not because you begged her to, but because she doesn't want to be the one left wondering what could have been. The man who masters silence doesn't lose women. He reveals which ones are willing to step forward. And when she steps forward on her own, she steps forward with intention. Now, let me give you the truth that ties all of this together. Silence is not about making her crazy. It's about making yourself steady. When you truly understand that, everything changes. Because the real power of going silent isn't what it does to her mind. It's what it does to yours. It forces you to confront your own need for validation. It forces you to sit with uncertainty without reaching for reassurance. It forces you to build a life that doesn't pause when someone's attention fluctuates. And that transformation is what she feels. Women are incredibly perceptive when it comes to emotional shifts. They may not always articulate it logically, but they feel the difference between a man who is pretending not to care and a man who genuinely has emotional control. Pretending creates tension in you. Control creates calm, and calm is magnetic. When you stop texting just to ease your anxiety, when you stop explaining yourself just to secure her approval, when you stop trying to lock her in with constant attention, something powerful happens. You become selective. You start observing her effort. You start noticing consistency. You start valuing reciprocity. And that alone elevates you because now you're not just hoping she chooses you. You're deciding if she earns you. That shift is everything. When she senses that you're evaluating her just as much as she's evaluating you, the dynamic balances. Attraction thrives in balance, not dominance, not submission. Balance. If she reaches out after your silence and you respond warmly but not desperately, you reinforce stability. If she increases effort and you reward it with genuine engagement, you create healthy momentum. But if she fades away and you remain grounded instead of scrambling to revive things, you protect your dignity. And dignity is attractive. Here's the part most men are afraid to accept. Sometimes your silence will reveal disinterest. Sometimes she won't chase. She won't lean in. She won't invest more. And that's not a failure. That's clarity. Silence filters out low investment. It exposes who values your presence and who simply enjoyed your attention. You don't want someone who only responds when you overextend. You want someone who steps forward when given space. So when you go silent, you're not playing games. You're allowing truth to surface, and truth is powerful. The strongest position you can hold in dating is this: I enjoy you, but I don't fear losing you. That energy cannot be faked. It comes from building a life so full that one person's response time doesn't shake your foundation. When you reach that level, your silence isn't tactical, it's natural. And natural confidence is irresistible. She doesn't feel manipulated. She feels intrigued. She feels the subtle challenge of earning your consistent presence. She feels the weight of possibly missing out on a man who doesn't bend under emotional pressure. And that's when her mind truly starts racing. Not because you disappeared, but because you stood still. Before you leave, I want you to be honest with yourself. If you stopped texting first for 7 days, would you feel peace or panic? Write your answer in the comments. And if this shifted the way you see attraction, like the video, subscribe, and share it with a friend who needs to stop chasing and start standing still. Sometimes the loudest move a man can make is silence.